Week 5 is here, and so are the bye weeks. We do have some teams missing out, and it is currently the Cleveland Browns, Los Angeles Chargers, Seattle Seahawks, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But that's not the purpose of the episode. The purpose of this episode are wide receiver stardom situms and wide receiver rankings 1 through 24. So let's go ahead and jump into these rankings, and I do want to give us a quick shout out. I feel like we nailed the Puka Nakua spot last week. He was at 2. He hit 4. I mean, we knew he was going to have a pretty good week, so I did want to give a shout out to that. But let's go ahead and jump into these week 5 matchups as well.
Does that go down if Cooper Kupp comes back this week? They're talking about a potential Cooper Kupp coming back week 5.
Yeah, no, I think that there is a good potential. Obviously, it goes down, but I think that he comes in and he's the clear-cut wide receiver too, so we just have to wait to hear about that status on Cooper Kupp moving into this week. Anyways, though, let's go ahead and jump into these rankings 1 through 12. These are wide receiver rankings for week 5, and I'll go ahead and get it started off for here. My favorite in these 1 through 12 is the Ja'Marr Chase versus the Arizona Cardinals. Now, the Arizona Cardinals have a decent defense against wide receivers. They are middle of the pack in receiving yards, have only allowed 1 touchdown, which is very good through 4 weeks. They are near the top defenses at defending end zones and everything else. So also middle of the pack with the fantasy points, and that's more so because they have not allowed a lot of touchdowns. So with T. Higgins out, and that's where I really like this Ja'Marr Chase matchup, is that T. Higgins is likely to be out of this game since he has fractured his ribs in that week 4 matchup. So this only leads to more increased opportunities for Ja'Marr Chase. We saw Ja'Marr Chase's frustrations with going 1-3 in the season, and he went on quote for saying, I'm open. I'm always effing open. And obviously he has the frustrations. Zach Taylor, the offensive coordinator and head coach, have got to do so much better at, or not offensive coordinator, but head coach and play caller. They've got to do so much better at getting him involved. I mean, it's just, that's how you win games. You got to get the ball in your playmaker's hands. Ja'Marr Chase is him. So
I agree with that, but Joe Burrow's looked like shit too.
yeah, no, he hasn't looked good at all. I mean, he's had 1 game where he threw for 2 touchdowns, but outside of that game, he's had now 3 games where he hasn't passed for a single touchdown at all. Only 1 game he has done that. So this offense, you can tell, is struggling. Do I think that lasts for the entire season? Absolutely not. I don't think that that's going to happen at all this entire season.
Only until he's healthy. When Joe Burrow becomes healthy, I think they'll be okay.
Yeah, I do too. It is. I do feel like it's a matter of time, and it's just waiting to find that click. And with that click, it's just they're going to have to get Ja'Marr Chase to be productive. So, like I said, T. Higgins is out. They're going to have to find a way to get the ball in Ja'Marr Chase's hands, meaning he will be productive. Even with that, he's had back-to-back games of 7+ receptions and 70+ yards in back-to-back games. I feel like this is going to be a similar matchup versus the Rams that he faced in week 3, where the Rams have a good pass defense. But we also saw in that matchup versus the Rams, Ja'Marr Chase had 12 receptions and 141 yards, finishing as wide receiver 6. So not really sure if Chase will find the end zone since they've only allowed 1 touchdown on the season, but I'm not quite sure that he needs that in order to have this top 10 wide receiver finish here. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into these wide receiver 2 rankings, which is 13 through 24. So Nathan, I'm going to kick it to you. Who is your most favorable matchup in these wide receiver 2 rankings?
I like Romeo Doubs. I really do. I like Romeo Doubs from here on out if Christian Watson's healthy. And I say that because we see what we saw with him against the Lions is what we expected to see throughout the first 4 weeks of this year, right? So with Christian Watson healthy, playing games, the clear-cut wide receiver number 2 is Romeo Doubs. And from what I've seen from Jordan Love, he tries to get the number 1 receiver involved. But even like watching the Atlanta game and this the Lions game, he spreads the ball out pretty well, and it's always the guys that you don't expect to be wide receiver number 1s. So I could see a lot of Romeo Doubs getting more 1-on-1s now that Christian Watson's back. I think Watson's going to get most of the attention. So this is where I believe Romeo Doubs can step up and be what everyone expected Romeo Doubs to be, and I think that he will be a secret or a sneaky safe net for Jordan Love. So this is why I like him here, and then plus they're playing the Raiders. So I mean, come on.
Yeah, and that is true. And I think the big thing with Christian Watson coming back and being healthy is even in that Thursday night matchup versus the Lions, he saw only 46% of the snaps. So he was in there 50% of the time. But the thing is when he's on the field, you have to respect his speed. And because of that, that's where it opens up those opportunities for Romeo Doubs. And we saw Romeo Doubs have a hell of a game this last week. And I mean, yeah, threw up just shy of 20 points at 18 and a half, 13
On the
targets, 9
bench.
receptions. Yeah.
That was
And I mean,
rough.
yeah, it was rough if you definitely had him on the bench because that Lions defense is good. So you are tempted to sit him. And I was guilty of that as well. I sat him.
I did sit him for Nico Collins though, so it
Oh, then there
actually
you go.
worked
It
out.
worked out perfect.
It
worked out perfect. This week.
Yeah, and I have to say, I've become pretty impressed too with Jordan Love. I like how many times the last couple of weeks, starting with New Orleans and then this past week, how many times Jordan Love is throwing the ball. His first couple of weeks, I think he threw it less than 30 times, maybe 25 to 28 times. But like week 3 versus New Orleans, he threw it like 44 times, 44, 45. And then like he just threw it like almost 40 times again last week. So I really like the production that he's given his receivers. So yeah, I think that's definitely a good solid choice, especially if he can come out there and do the same thing.
Well, I mean, yeah, I'm with you, Dalton. And look for him to really bounce back this year, the whole Packers team as a whole, because if you watch any of that post game stuff on Matt LaFleur, when they asked him, they said, "What happened?" He said, "We flat out got our fucking ass kicked," and they did. I mean, no offense here, DJ, but y'all got embarrassed at home at Lambeau Field.
I mean, yes, there was a lot of injuries and a lot of things that I mean, we had arguably 6 to 7 starters on both sides of the ball that were out. But with that, though, I mean, 2 offensive linemen being out, and I mean, it was just it was rough because that Lions D line is very good, and when you're running with backup O linemen against that Lions defensive front, you're in for a long game. And I thought Jordan Love handled it good. Again, like I said, Packers are going to have high highs and low lows. Yeah, in the second half, but that was also how it was with New Orleans. So I don't know.
They're playing a broken down defense. Really, the only person on defense you need to be worried about is Max Crosby, and I don't see the Packers playing 2 games in a row like that.
Oh, gosh, I hope not. I really hope not. Again, with the depleted defense, though, David Bakhtiari's on IR, so he's definitely missing out on that one. I hope we get Elton Jenkins back. But anyways, let's go ahead and move on. Dalton, you also have a stardom in these 13 through 24 wide receiver 2 rankings, and which of these matchups do you find the most favorable?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go ahead and choose the guy that's just down the rankings just a bit, and that's someone who Nathan had dropped for Romeo Doubs, and that's going to be Nico Collins this past week. So I really like the matchup this week here for Nico Collins versus the Atlanta Falcons. Similar to the Steelers, who they faced last week, the Atlanta Falcons love to pressure the quarterback. I'm assuming that D'Amico Ryans is just going to copy and paste literally the game script he had last week and just put it on this week, because they're pretty much the same type of defenses that you're going to be getting. So through the first 4 weeks, the Falcons defense currently ranks top 5 in pressure rate with 29.1%. So I believe CJ Stroud's going to be pressured quite a bit, and he's going to be forced out of the pocket, and he's going to have a bunch of time he's not going to have a bunch of time to throw this week. So he'll be relied upon heavily to make quick, decisive decisions, and which I think will benefit Nico Collins heavily again in this game script, just like it did last week. So he'll be Collins has been utilized all over the field, deep, mid, and short passing. But I think, again, like he was this past week, I think he's going to get involved and get a lot of opportunities to get like quick slants, short drags, and even a couple of wide receiver screens to help him out. And I think that's going to help kind of combat the heavy pass rush from Atlanta. So cementing himself as a trustworthy target for Stroud, I'm pretty confident that this matchup is going to be another high target volume game for Nico Collins. So I'm loving this. I'm all over it. I do know that they have Tank Dell there, but like I said, they're going to find ways to get their playmaker in the game script and get him the ball. So I'm not too worried about that. I think they complement each other very well, and Nico Collins is going to have another breakout performance this week.
Yeah. I'm with you, Dalton, and look for the Texans to go above 500 here. I'm going to be the first to tell y'all they've exceeded my expectations. They have their defense has played extremely well these last 2 games, extremely well, and CJ Stroud picked apart that Steelers defense. He had another 300-yard passing game. He looked good in the pocket. Um, he was able to get away from pressure, and that's defense who has T.J. Watt and the Steelers. And he threw for 300 yards and had time in the pocket and made good decisions. I think out of all of the rookie quarterbacks, I would say C.J. Stroud is probably playing the best right now.
Yeah.
Just as an overall quarterback in the NFL, fantasy wise, you're probably going to say Anthony Richardson, but that's because he runs the ball a lot in the red zone because he is a massive man. But as an overall quarterback play, I think C.J. Stroud has been the best rookie quarterback so far, and I'm with Dalton. I look for them to do a lot of get the ball out of his hands quick this week, and I'm excited to see. I'm kind of excited to see the matchup because the Falcons, they're desperate for a win, and then the Texans are looking to go above 500 here.
And don't get worried and don't get sucked into their defensive secondary, guys. We were hyped on their secondary, all the changes they've made and bringing in Jesse Bates and all that. But guys, they're currently ranked like defense number 27 right now. Guys, they didn't on paper they look like they did fine, but their defense is still struggling. Maybe they're still trying to find that identity. They've got the playmakers there, but right now they're not clicking. So like I said, Nico Collins, despite the good secondary that the Falcons have, I think the Nico should still be able to perform very well.
I agree. Nico Collins should not have any issue. I know that's the biggest conversation at the point right now is it Nico Collins or is it Tank Dell as wide receiver one? And honestly, I feel like it doesn't matter just because as much as CJ Stroud is throwing, he is now every single game this season. He's had 30 plus attempts. He's very safe with the ball. Hasn't turned it over up to this point. No interceptions. 6 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I mean, that's absolutely insane as a rookie quarterback and throwing it 30 plus times every single game. So I think Nico Collins, in my opinion, if I did have to pick one, he is wide receiver one. He's been more consistent. Week 3 was a little bit of a slip up for him. But then other than that, he's now had 2 finishes inside of the top 10 for wide receivers. So I do love Nico Collins moving forward a lot. Atlanta will be tough, but I do like him moving forward no matter what in this Houston Texans offense. Now, looking back at these wide receiver rankings 1 through 24, there are a couple people who did not make this list. And to answer your question, no, it is not because it is their bye week. It's because of their matchup. So I will start it off for us. And my sit-em for this week is Michael Thomas versus the New England Patriots. I'm not high on him. I know he's been consistent. He's been like a consistent flex. He's someone that you can throw in your flex spot if you're looking for 10 to 12 points, which is good. That's what you're looking for. But I think that he's going to struggle to meet those numbers coming into this week. Patriots are coming off of a bad game. We saw them get embarrassed by the Dallas Cowboys. And a matter of fact, that was Bill Belichick's largest loss in NFL in general. Yeah, Nathan's over here wearing a Cowboys hat, making sure we all.
I just got one thing to say. How about them Cowboys?
Don't
even.
He went there.
So getting back to kind of what you said there, DJ, with Mike Thomas, do you think that holds true even with Christian Gonzalez possibly being out this upcoming week? That Patriots secondary is very, very thin.
It is, but I think the overall unit as itself is very good because currently they are allowing less than 200 total passing yards per game at 33 attempts per game. The Saints have had a highly favorable matchup at the first part of this season through the first 4 weeks, facing the Tennessee Titans, Panthers, Packers, and Bucks. This week versus the New England Patriots is going to be their first week versus a true defense. And Derek Carr is struggling at the quarterback position. He has now gone 2 weeks back-to-back, less than 130 yards passing. So it's hard to imagine him getting involved. Again, even through that, Michael Thomas has found a way to get 10 to 12 fantasy points per game in PPR leagues. But I think versus this New England Patriots defense, he's going to definitely struggle to get that going. I think that this is going to be a very low-scoring game, and Michael Thomas is going to just struggle. They are in Foxborough. That's a tough environment to play in. So everything is it's a lot of negative signs pointing towards Michael Thomas coming into this matchup with the way Derek Carr is playing, with it being a tough defense and it being on the road. So I'm staying far away from Michael Thomas this week.
Well, now that you're talking about the Saints, it just dawned on me. You made a call out about Puka, right? I know we're not on a running back segment, but I'm pretty sure I called out Alvin Kamara coming back alpha suspension to have a very good week, and he did.
He might as well have been a wide receiver this past week, though, with 13
Yeah, no
receptions
kidding.
on 14 targets. So, I mean, yeah,
And
you
that's
did call
kind of what
that
I
too.
called off. I called off a lot of dump off passes to Alvin Kamara. So
He looked like his normal self.
yeah,
It was nice seeing him come back to it. But
yeah.
anyways,
Sorry about
Nathan,
that. Just want to throw that out there.
oh, you're good. Anyways, Nathan, I'm going to kick it to you on this. Who is your sit-em for these Week 5 matchups at the wide receiver position?
I'm gonna go Brandin Cooks with the Cowboys. It hasn't been what a lot of Cowboys fans and I probably even what Mike McCarthy hoped. They thought a lot of deep shots down the field with Brandin Cooks. They just haven't connected yet. After watching this Patriots game, CeeDee Lamb is the obvious wide receiver number one. He's been tearing it up this year. He's looked phenomenal. They get him, try to get him the ball in every way possible. But it seems to me, even watching this Patriots game, the past 2 weeks, a clear cut wide receiver number two is a Michael Gallup. And so they were hoping that Brandin Cooks would kind of come in and be like an Amari Cooper, which I don't know why they said that because obviously you have CeeDee Lamb. But I'm sitting Brandin Cooks if you have him. I mean, I don't even have him, but yeah, he's a wide receiver 3 option at best because they use CeeDee Lamb a lot, and then you have Tony Pollard that they use quite a bit. And if CeeDee Lamb's covered in the passing game, they're using Jake Ferguson or even Michael Gallup. So I would steer clear away from him if you have him on your team. Probably drop him and see if you can find somebody that's going to be more productive on the waiver wire, someone who's more consistent. I mean, he'll probably have a big game here and there because he'll hook up on a deep shot eventually. But I'm steering away from Brandin Cooks pretty much all year.
Look, I don't think there's much knock to have on Brandin Cooks or the wide receivers for the Cowboys in general. I feel like they have so many star-studded receivers on that team.
Exactly.
That
It's
it's just
nothing
that
against him.
it's
It's
not.
just they
It's
just
just that
got playmakers all over the
it,
place.
it's hard to feed everyone, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the receivers could be wide receiver ones on other teams, you know. And so when you have a good group of stars, I think it comes down to who's got more chemistry with Dak Prescott is all it is. And Brandin Cooks has moved around so much that coming onto this Cowboy squad that's already built chemistry with Dak, it's kind of hard to build that rapport. So I think that's all it is a matter of it. But yeah, I would have to agree.
He's arguably fourth best option.
Yeah,
because his whole career Prescott has given the tight end the football too. So you could arguably say it's CD, Ferguson, Gallup, then Cooks.
So Cowboys are now going to put Brandin Cooks in jeopardy of continuing his 1,000-yard seasons on multiple teams. So that's going to be really fun because he has only gone over 25 yards one time. So
and it sucks too
fun.
because it's nothing against him. It's like what Dalton said. That's the crappy thing, right? Because it's nothing against him or his performance. It's like what Dalton said. You just can't feed everybody, and they have stars all over the place over there on the Cowboys offense that they really like. So.
But leave it to the Cowboys to do it. Leave it to the Cowboys.
That's all it is. Just letting more and more people down as the years go on. Anyways, though, Dalton, let's kick it to you for this final sit-em on this wide receiver Week 5 episode. Who do you have?
Guys, someone that I thought I would never talk about, especially after Week 1, is going to be Calvin Ridley. I'm not loving this matchup at all for the Jaguars. They're playing the Buffalo Bills at home, in Buffalo. So since returning to action after suspension, guys, Calvin Ridley has only had one productive game this season, which was Week 1 versus the Colts, in which he mustered out 8 catches for over 100 yards and a touchdown. Since then, guys, in that one game, he has had more receptions in Week 1 than he has had in weeks 2, 3, and 4 combined. So I'm not expecting things to get much better for him this week versus a pretty stout Buffalo Bills defense, which ranks 3rd in pressure rate and 1st in turnover rate this year. So I believe the Jags will struggle this week. So I will be looking for Trevor Lawrence to rely on someone who he has built chemistry on, and that's going to be his go-to guy, Christian Kirk. And I think he's going to look to him on deep third downs in the red zone, tough situations. I think Christian Kirk is going to be his guy, and I think he's going to be that way for the rest of the season. I think Ridley still brings decent flex appeal. Don't get me wrong, but he's definitely not the wide receiver one that many of us thought he was going to be, and the same receiver that we saw in week one. So we may see flashes of it here and there, but don't be fooled by it. I've still got my money on him not being the wide receiver one this week versus the Bills. So I think Christian Kirk is definitely going to be that guy. So.
I will agree. I will say that I am in the first stage of grief right now, and I am in denial about Calvin Ridley not having a good season and not being the wide receiver one for the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's just tough to imagine that Christian Kirk is the guy, but I mean, it's just that's what it proves to be. If you look everything, like you said, outside of week one, Christian Kirk is easily wide receiver one, and maybe that was just an outlier game for Calvin Ridley because what he's been throwing up has just been absolutely ridiculous. So I mean, he's slowly started to slide down our rankings every single week. So he's put himself in a position where it's almost like he has to earn himself our trust. But then, like you're saying, if you're now in a position, like I think that Calvin Ridley has put himself now on a bubble to where it's like, do I now start this dude or do I not? And coming into this matchup versus the Buffalo Bills, I don't love it, like you're saying, with their pressure rate and their turnover rate.
They
just
shut down Tyreek Hill too.
Yeah, I mean, and exactly,
and
they're a good defense.
Offense.
Right after they scored 70 on Denver, and then they come in, and it's just like, man.
Yeah, and the Jaguars' offense has been struggling as it is anyways, and it's been tough to watch them. It's been just as bad as the Cincinnati Bengals, like we were talking about with Jamar Chase earlier. So I mean,
for the Bills to blow them out of the water, probably.
There's a good chance that happens, which I mean could open up the doors for more passing opportunities for Trevor Lawrence and just figuring it out like that. But again, I wouldn't put all my eggs in that basket, and I do agree that if anything, it's Christian Kirk taking off this week again and not Calvin Ridley. So
look, if you're still holding on to Calvin Ridley at this point, I think you should be like DJ and go ahead and start entering the grieving process. And I think the quicker you get over it, the better. So I'm feeling.
But my thing is when he pops off in about week 12, I told you.
Starting him.
I told you.
Starting
Don't
him.
forget it. I told you though. So, anyways,
now that we've kind of, I got a question to ask y'all because I've seen this all over the place. Everyone's saying that Bills are Super Bowl contenders. Do you all agree with that?
Yes, I do. I think they are contenders.
I want your explanation.
Yes. I mean, I think they're contenders because it takes a good defense, and they know how to play in the cold. So whenever it comes to the December-January matchups, if they can get some home games, they know how to play in the cold. So I love the
home
teams
games last year. They lost to the Bengals.
Hey, let me say this. Denver 2015. That's exactly what it is, but with a better quarterback. Don't get me wrong, I love Peyton Manning, but I think Josh Allen at this point in stage, this defense reminds me of the Denver 2015. I think the defense, like you said, can take you all the way. And Josh Allen, I think when he comes into his postseason form, I think they'll be fine.
And you know what's crazy is even with that team, Von Miller isn't even back with the Bills. He's about to return. So this defense isn't even at max capacity.
That's crazy.
So they're about to only get better. So I like them, and it's mainly because of their defense. Their offense worries me, but their defense is good.
I think they're a contender, but I'm not going to say Super Bowl favorites. I mean,
they're not my favorite.
They're the only team in NFL history to go to 4 Super Bowls in a row and lose all 4 of them.
Yeah, look, the question was contenders, and I think they're contenders, but they're not favorites for me either.
A lot of people are saying Bills are going to win the Super Bowl, and I'm just like, dude, a lot of people would love to see the Buffalo Bills finally get that Super Bowl win. But then you have all the Bills fans are like, the Bills are going to be the Bills, dude. I mean,
and also I was looking at some of the odds on teams to win the Super Bowl, and the Commanders were worst at plus 60,000. I'd be lying if I didn't say I didn't throw a unit on the Commanders to win the Super Bowl. Will that happen? Probably not. But they played good against the Eagles, so it gave me a little bit of hope.
If they do,
the Eagles
dinner's on me. Dinner's on me.
You'll be a rich motherfucker.
Dinner's on me. I got you.
Rich motherfucker.
But anyways, go ahead, Dalton.
I was gonna say, let's go ahead and remind everybody who was our Super Bowl favorites that we had talked about earlier. Do we remember?
Mine were the Jaguars.
The Eagles.
DJ's was Jaguars, and mine was the Lions.
I think mine were the Eagles.
So I am doing the worst. That was really good. That's a great way to end this, Dalton. I appreciate that. That's fantastic. Thank y'all so much for listening to this. I do appreciate it. Thank y'all again. Hopefully y'all found some value in this and y'all have better luck heading into this week. If you didn't win last week, if you did, again, stack up those wins, put you one step closer to your fantasy championships this year, and we will see y'all next time.
Next time.
Hey, subscribe, like, and comment, guys. Love
Yes,
it.
sir. Yes, sir.